The first game on Saturday is the first home playoff game for the Buffalo Bills since December of 1996. They will welcome 6,700 fans into Bills Stadium to watch their old AFC East rivals, the Colts, come to town. Let's hear from the two quarterbacks in this game, Josh Allen and Phillip Rivers, from earlier in the week.
I think the main lesson was not to press, understand the situation that we were in. Obviously, if I can go back and change things, I would. But I'm glad that they went down the way that they went down. I was able to learn a lot from it and hopefully carry that, playoff experience into Saturday's game.
I don't carry that with me day to day. That played 16 years, never been a part of a championship. I don't. I really don't. We strive for it every year, and striving for it like crazy this year. But it's not something that I feel heavy or something I'm carrying around with me. Shoot, it's a new beginning every day, and excited for each challenge and opportunity.
As Josh Allen was talking about his struggles in the playoff game last year, he was great early, but just right on that edge of out of control, the weird flip over his head as the game was falling apart. Maybe just a manifestation of the frustration he was feeling because he didn't have the weapons that would match his skills. Well, now his skills have improved. The weapons have improved. And I think that's going to be a real challenge, Peter, for Josh Allen. And I think he's up to it, but he needs to make us forget all about the guy that we saw in those bad moments against the Texans last year when they blew the 16-point lead and lost in overtime. He needs to make us absolutely never think about that, and he shouldn't think about it too much. He just needs to go out and play the way he's been playing.
Yeah, to me, Mike, that's a little bit in the rearview mirror because we've seen such a different quarterback this year. And, he's become a quarterback who is extremely confident both in and out of the pocket. My biggest question about this game for Buffalo, honestly, is if Cole Beasley plays. I mean, Cole Beasley is the slot receiver on my all-pro team this year. This year, the Associated Press asked voters to vote for 3 wide receivers. They didn't put any limit. They didn't put any restrictions on how you vote for them. And look, I mean, I probably would have voted as my third receiver for somebody like Tyreek Hill, but I like to put my votes for players as if I was going to play a game. And so I want a slot receiver on my team. And Cole Beasley led all NFL slot receivers in yardage this year, and he was the most effective, efficient receiver in that ping pong ball type area of the slot this year. If he's not there, he's become a real security blanket, for Josh Allen. If he's not there, or if he's limited or restricted in any way, I think that's a big boost for Indianapolis.
He did practice yesterday, which is good news for the Buffalo Bills. He was week to week with that knee injury he suffered in Week 16. Stephon Diggs questionable as well. He missed practice Wednesday, was back Thursday. He's got an oblique injury, but obviously that's a huge issue for Josh Allen. And I agree with you. It's like he's a different guy than he was a year ago. But this is his first time back to single-elimination football since a year ago. And part of the challenge, just like with Lamar Jackson, you got to find a way to forget about what happened last year. Learn the lessons that you can from last year, incorporate them into your game, but ultimately forget about last year and focus on forging a new legacy. And, for Phillip Rivers, he falls into that category of guys for whom it could be it. We talked earlier about what could happen with the Colts, especially if they lose, and will they want him back? The networks are starting to eyeball Phillip Rivers, and I think he would be awesome in the booth, and he could make plenty of money in the booth and not be in harm's way, and he could do that for 25 years if he wants to. So a lot of questions about where these two quarterbacks are moving in their career trajectories, but Josh Allen's moving into the top 3, frankly, right now. For the Colts, Peter, do you have in mind any sort of a strategy, a recipe, a formula for pulling off what would be, I think for most people, a pretty significant upset, although I think these two teams may be closer than the point spread would suggest?
Yeah, 30 years ago, Mike, in what was the absolute total unequivocal nightmare scenario game in the great Buffalo Bills run. Everybody will remember the Scott Norwood wide right kick by 8 inches or whatever it was that cost them that game. But what I really remember about that game is the fact that the New York Giants went into it saying, we are going to limit the number of possessions that our opponent is going to get in this Super Bowl. Remember, Giants got 5 field goals to beat the 49ers, capitalized on a late fumble. That might have been the best 49ers team of all time, and the Giants beat them that year in what the 49ers still bemoan as a lost opportunity. And obviously the Bills beat Oakland 51-0 or whatever it was. And Parcells' whole philosophy in that game was, you got to shorten the game. You got to play clock ball. And if I were the Indianapolis Colts, I were Frank Reich this week, I would be telling my offense, I'd be telling everybody in that offensive room, just do things to make the clock keep running. Don't go out of bounds. Just make the clock keep running. We only want to give Buffalo 8 or 9 possessions. That is the crucial thing. And Indianapolis's running game has been so powerful recently that I think they've got a chance to be able to do this. And I think if you look up at the end of the game and you see Colts with 43 rushes, I think obviously this has got to be a huge day for Jonathan Taylor. If you look up and see them with 43 rushes at the end of the game, or you look at the Colts or you look at the Bills times, then I'm going to say, Indianapolis just might have won this game.
The 253 rushing yards from Jonathan Taylor last week were amazing. The rookies are supposed to hit a wall. He was used extensively at Wisconsin, but he is going strong. And part of that, too, Peter, I think comes down to the awareness of Phillip Rivers. He needs to milk the play clock down to 0 or close to it as often as he possibly can when the clock is running. And that's something Sims and I talked about yesterday. And this is one of Sims' favorite phrases. We used to use it for Patrick Mahomes, but we can now use it for Josh Allen. You want him standing on the sideline drinking Gatorade. You don't want him in the game. And then when he gets in the game, maybe he presses a little bit. Maybe he's a little frustrated. Maybe that frustration manifests itself because he's not out there on the field as much as he'd like to be. Here we are with fans for the first time this season, and I can't get on the football field to do what I'd like to do. And, the thing about playoff football, if you're the favorite and it doesn't start well and you can't get it going, you quickly feel in the pit of your stomach it's all slipping away. That's what makes what the Chiefs did last year so much more impressive when they were down 24, because it was over. It was done. See you later. Great season, Chiefs, but reset to 0-0, and we'll see you next year. To find your way out of that hole when you know your season is closing in around you and it's over, and to do it against the Titans in the AFC Championship, to do it against the 49ers in the Super Bowl, that's truly remarkable. But, if the Colts can just catch them flat-footed early and do exactly what you've suggested, and Sims and I went through basically the same formula yesterday, run the ball, milk the clock, keep Josh Allen on the sidelines. If the Colts can make it a game, if the Colts can hold a lead into the second half, and if the Bills can just start thinking, well, it's where can they find that Patrick Mahomes will and determination and ability to transcend that feeling of it's all falling apart?
The other kind of interesting thing about this game, Mike, that I don't know how much you guys have talked about it, but Frank Reich returning to the scene of his prime, returning to the place that had the greatest comeback and, really numerically a bigger comeback than Tom Brady did, but, one of the greatest comebacks in sports history. And, I'll never forget being at that game that night or that day and waiting for Frank Reich at the end of the day. And finally, he was the last guy left in the locker room. He had taken his shower, and there was nobody left in the locker room. And I'm waiting until he's ready to talk to me. And Reich turns to the equipment manager, and he says, hey, if everybody's gone, can you let Linda in? I've been kept her waiting for so long. And his wife, Linda, comes into the locker room at the time, 30 years ago, and Frank Reich, and they kind of semi-jog to each other like it's one of those commercials. And he lifted her up in the air, and I said, oh, my God. I wish I had a camera to record this. It was fantastic. But Frank Reich was there that day, and Frank Reich was also on the field in Tampa the day that the Giants, had that game against Buffalo. And, I mean, he's got so many fond memories of everything that happened in Buffalo. He loves Buffalo. And I think the one thing about this game, it has nothing to do with institutional knowledge because they're different teams, but I think Frank Reich really does appreciate that there's not going to be 70,000 fans there, making it extraordinarily difficult for the visiting team to win.
It's amazing to think he's such a great part of the Bills' past. His opportunity to try to stick a knife into their present does add some flavor to this one, and that's the one that gets it started tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern, right out of the gates. Colts Bills.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.